Providing more guidelines and understanding to improve citizen-police relationships. A presentation by Paul Brackey. Author, publisher of American Leadership Books. Author of 9 books on criminal justice issues. In the previous video in this series, I discussed some major problems interfering with good citizen-police relationships, most notably racial tension, which has led to many black deaths and killings of cops by blacks. Here I want to talk about several key ways to improve citizen-police relationships. More training guidelines and citizen police involvement. Increasing understanding about police use of force guidelines. Reducing the media's ability to increase citizen police tensions. Clearer guidelines for the police are needed to help promote more understanding by citizens. Here are some suggestions. Additional national training guidelines might be developed for police departments throughout the nation. These guidelines might detail when the police should use force to protect themselves and when they should use other methods to control and subdue the suspect. Here are some suggestions for how the police should respond when dealing with a crime suspect. The police might withdraw to a safe distance when a suspect has a knife, so they are not in danger of being attacked at close quarters. This will give the police more time to try to cool down the situation. If a suspect is running away, it is better to let that person go and seek to make an arrest later, rather than shoot that person to stop an escape. Involving local citizens can help improve relations too. Here are 2 ways to do this. Participation on local citizen review boards might be expanded to include both local citizens and officials. The board might include some members of the city's elected board of supervisors that governs with the mayor. This involvement of local officials can increase community-wide participation and facilitate more citizen and police cooperation. It will help to provide more transparency about police operations. One way to do this is removing any restrictions on members of the public filming and recording the police on duty. Developing measures to improve citizen-police relationships will help in a number of ways. They will help the police deal more peacefully with a current problem while helping to build trust in the community. This approach can reduce costs, given the high cost of dealing with the investigation and the legal fallout following any police-citizen killing. Increasing understanding about police use of force guidelines. A major reason for citizen distrust of police is a lack of knowledge about the use of force guidelines. Citizens don't realize how the police have to react very quickly, in seconds, when they perceive a potential deadly threat against them. Thus citizens need to be provided with more knowledge. The police also need to be given more guidelines on when and how to de-escalate a threatening situation without shooting. The basic use of force guideline is that sheriffs or peace officers should use any reasonable non-deadly force as necessary to apprehend and arrest a suspected criminal. If the suspect resists and escalates the arrest into a confrontation where the officer fears for his or her life, that officer has the authority to use deadly force. One source of misunderstanding about the use of force is what is a reasonable belief. In general, citizens don't understand that these judgments about whether the officer acted reasonably are based on this criteria. These judgments are based on what a law enforcement officer would reasonably believe is a real danger from the suspect rather than what an average citizen would believe. Beliefs about what is reasonable force can differ for citizens and police for these reasons. The officer has a better understanding of the true nature of the danger than the average person. The officer has this better understanding because the officer has experienced many months of training on when to use deadly force in response to a perception of danger. A police officer may be more likely to respond with deadly force than a citizen expects for several reasons. A suspect can very quickly fire a gun or charge an officer with a knife. It can be difficult for an officer to accurately distinguish whether the suspect has a gun or not in a low-light situation, which is when most citizen police encounters occur. Upon seeing the potential danger, the officer has only moments in which to react by using deadly force to protect him or herself. If the police officer hesitates and is wrong, he or she will die. Generally, citizens don't understand this need for quick action. Thus, they may claim the officer shouldn't have shot, because the suspect only had a toy gun or a cell phone. But at the time the officer didn't know. Thus, when the suspect didn't respond to a command to immediately put up his or her hands, the officer felt his or her life at risk. In such a situation, the officer is justified to shoot, though many citizens don't understand why he or she had the right to do so. Citizens also don't understand the need for quick action in a potentially threatening situation. Citizens don't realize how quickly a suspect's attack can turn deadly in a matter of seconds. This is another reason an officer might respond with deadly force rather than taking the risk that the suspect will shoot or charge with a knife. The average citizen doesn't understand this need for the officer to respond almost instantaneously, when a resisting suspect might be armed with a gun or a knife. So a citizen might readily claim an officer unjustly killed the victim and use that to fuel a protest movement to seek justice for the victim. Such protests have occurred after numerous recent deaths by cops, but in most cases, the officer was justified to shoot, as later determined in a series of hearings about the case. A citizen police academy can help citizens better understand what the police do and the guidelines they have to follow. Few citizens go through a citizen police academy class. In such a class they might recognize how a delay in responding to a potentially deadly incident could be disastrous. In such a class, they experience a training simulator in which they are presented with a series of potentially deadly encounters, where the suspect has a gun, knife, or object that could be a weapon or cell phone. Citizens do not realize the many hearings which a police officer has to undergo after a shooting. At these hearings, the officer is judged again and again as to whether he or she followed the use of force principles. Under these principles, the officer would be justified in shooting with a belief that he or she or a third party was at risk of injury and death under these circumstances. As often occurs at these hearings, the citizen's original perceptions and beliefs about the incident are often wrong. The citizens' perceptions and belief are often wrong because they are based on incorrect facts that get circulated by the social media. Then, these incorrect facts are often reported as true by the mainstream media. But once the evidence of what actually happened is in, the officer's report about what happened is usually confirmed. As a result, the false information circulating about the incident is generally refuted. Given these frequent misperceptions and false beliefs by citizens, there is a need for citizen education in police guidelines, particularly about use of force guidelines. This education might be provided through various means: a citizen police academy, online courses, a workshop for the police and local community members, a video series featured at the local library, and other efforts to promote citizen understanding. The role of the media in increasing citizen police tensions. The media increases this citizen-police conflict because it sensationalizes the case. The media often sides with the victim, turning the officer into a demon in the public eye. Often the media gets what happened wrong or puts out a preliminary account of the case which later turns out to be wrong. After the media puts out a false story, it can spread virally, so many people think it is true. Since people think the false story about the terrible actions of the officer, they believe there was no justice, when the police officer is found not guilty. Though the police officer was cleared of any wrongdoing, people believe that a fix was in, so the police officer was wrongly acquitted. Once the media gives legitimacy to a false story, this furthers its spread and general acceptance. Generally, a subsequent correction several days later gets lost, because of the emphasis in the media on the latest and breaking news in each day's news cycle. Alternatively, if a subsequent correction gets noticed, it is often viewed as a false whitewash. Whatever form the correction takes, any attempt to correct the record usually gets lost, since the media are on to the next big story. Since the media makes it seem like the deaths of black males by the police are more common than they are, this contributes to tensions between blacks and police. But blacks are much more likely to be killed by other citizens, especially by black males, than by the police. The majority of these killings of blacks in both justifiable and criminal homicides are by blacks killing blacks. So blacks are more likely to kill or be killed by other blacks than killing or being killed by the police. A key reason for this false perception of widespread police killings is that the social media and traditional media play up some stories. By selectively picking certain stories about police killings, the media turn them into international stories. Many activist groups, such as the Black Lives Matter movement, play up some of these killings, resulting in still more media coverage. Here are my suggestions on how the police should deal with the media. Because a story can be so distorted by public opinion and the media, the police should get out accurate information about a case more quickly. Getting out information quickly will help reduce the conflict between the police and the media. It will reduce the conflict, since the media want to put out the information immediately, while the police have traditionally sought to conduct a careful examination of the evidence. The police want to do a careful examination to be sure what they report is accurate and to protect the innocence of possible suspects until proven guilty. Another reason the police should put out information more quickly is that will help to correct any misunderstandings and misperceptions early on. This early correction is important, because once incorrect information is out there, it stays there as a result of repeated news accounts and social media postings. Since the police are unable to slow down the media, the police must speed up releasing information. Here are some last suggestions on what the police should do in dealing with the media. The police need to improve their relationship with the media, so they can comment on any breaking news story more quickly. While more quickly getting out the correct version of what really happened, law enforcement officials should not interfere with an investigation into the crime and collecting evidence and testimony by witnesses. With an improved relationship, law enforcement officials might be better able to get the media to publish the correct information and quickly correct or not publish inaccurate news. For more information, American Leadership Books. Little Rock, Arkansas. www.americanleadershipbooks.com. Info@americanleadershipbooks.com